Hello, and welcome. So I'm gonna do a review. I'm gonna do a review of the latest Star Wars movie. It came out like today, basically, but I saw it last night. The Last Jedi. It's the eighth movie in the main Star Wars canon. I guess you would call it. Before I even get into that, I'm just going to say this is going to be spoilery. So if you don't want a spoiler review, if you don't want to know, then go away. I'll give my one sentence encapsulated review that has no spoilers. It's really good. It's a really fucking good Star Wars movie. Probably in my top 3 of my overall favorite Star Wars movies. And I'm not going to say what those are because my preferences differ somewhat with I don't know if you would call it mainstream or the usual. My opinions tend to clash with other people. So I'm just going to, so that's it for non-spoilers. I'm just going to start going into the meat of the review. So essentially, the premise of the movie is, and this is probably one of the bigger reliefs about the movie, is that it's not like The Force Awakens. I liked The Force Awakens. I thought it was a perfectly good movie, especially in comparison to the prequel trilogy. But the thing about A Force Awakens is that it's very much a retread of A New Hope. And that's not beat for beat necessarily, but it is like the whole premise of it smacks of A New Hope. It's like to the point where they're kind of lampshading it within the narrative. Like, I remember specifically a point when before they're going to destroy the big the planet base of the First Order, and they basically, it's a planet base that has the ability to, instead of destroy planets, it can literally destroy planetary systems, which is it's basically a bigger Death Star, and they don't try to hide the fact that it's basically just a bigger Death Star. And in a sense, The Force Awakens, I think personally, it hit on a lot of the beats of A New Hope, and I think that was a good move. I think that was necessary. In fact, I think it made for just going beyond this sense of nostalgia, which I know was a factor when they put this script together. But people need to bear in mind that what preceded Rogue One, what preceded The Force Awakens, was the prequel trilogies, which, disregarding what you personally think of the prequel trilogies, whether they're really bad or whether they're okay or whether they have a lot of redeeming qualities that people don't give them credit for, I get all those viewpoints, but the prequel trilogy was so different in tone and just in so many ways. The prequel trilogy was so different from the original trilogy, which, for better or worse, a lot of people love the original trilogy, and not a lot of people love the prequel trilogy. So with this series or trilogy, this new trilogy, they're trying to recapture the essence of the originals, at least for the first movie, to get people back in to the kind of allure that is Star Wars. And in that way, I think the first movie did its job very well in terms of it hit all the beats that were necessary. I mean, it hit the main character being a marginalized, kind of nobody from a desert rock planet who meets up with these, varying personalities, and they somehow, come together to pull off this impossible mission or aid in the success of this impossible mission. And the older kind of mentor characters, if you could call Han Solo that, is killed off, and that's like kind of the parallel between Han and Obi-Wan in those movies. Like, there's a lot of similar things happening, and obviously the rebels managed to destroy this I think it's called Starkiller Base, or Sunkiller Base, something like that. It's the bigger Death Star, basically. They destroy it and everybody gets away, and it's a happy it's a New Hope. It's a New Hope. It's a variation on a theme, I should say. It's not a New Hope. It's The Force Awakens, but it has a lot of the same earmarks. Now, in this movie, and I believe this is done purposefully, because a lot of people, I think, feared that because The Force Awakens mirrored A New Hope so closely, I think they thought that, is this next movie just going to be, a complete rehash, if you will, of The Empire Strikes Back. And in a lot of ways, no. It's actually a deliberate subversion of the things that happened in that movie. In a lot of ways, yeah, it's a lot of what it's doing is subverting Star Wars tropes purposefully. It's a deconstruction of the series' tropes, which I don't think anybody really expected it to do. I mean, not even like me. I was expecting things to kind of unravel and, have and revelations be made. And the honest truth of this movie is that none of that really happens, which is actually kind of good. I mean, it's refreshing. It's like, it's just, it works for this particular movie because of how, in a lot of ways, unexpected it is. For example, and this, again, spoilers, I'm not, if you don't want to hear anything about the movie, then out. Rey's lineage, and I know this will probably make a lot of people mad, or maybe it doesn't, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people will be mad about this, but simply because of how powerful the movie or the series is portraying Rey as. According to this movie, at least, or the revelations made in this movie, Rey's parents are of no consequence to the group. I mean, essentially, Kylo Ren tells her that her parents were nobody. They were just junk. They were just junk scavengers, basically. Like, there's no Vader moment. There's no Luke Vader moment. There's no twist, I guess you could say. And that's like, the twist is that there is no twist. Rey is just came from a normal background that happens to be extremely disadvantaged. And the reason she's so powerful in the Force I mean, why was Anakin so powerful in the Force? I mean, according to the prequel trilogy, he was basically the product of some woman. That's a little disrespectful. His mother mating with midichlorians, I guess. Like it doesn't really. It's not a satisfying answer, is what I'm saying. So it's like it doesn't really matter. Why Rey is so powerful in the Force, in my opinion. I think it's a kind of just a fucking a jerk off, like pointless question to ask, because why must it be that the Skywalkers are like ordained the most powerful people in the canon of the story? Like, why can't there be someone else? Why can't there be other families? Why can't there be other people? So yeah, that's basically one of the subversions that the movie makes. Another subversion is the idea or the concept of, which is, I thought was, just fucking brilliant. The concept of the master manipulator Sith Lord. I mean, this is not just for anyone who is familiar with Star Wars on a more than just the movie level, just the film cinematic level. If you've read the books, if you've played the games, if you've whatever, there's always this idea or this concept or this archetype, and it's Sidious. That's what it is. I mean, it's a different guy, maybe like every time, but it's essentially Sidious. The idea of this, like this shadowy, like, figure behind the scenes who's master manipulating everything, and it's like the scene in Jedi Strikes Back. I'm sorry, Jedi Strikes Back. Fucking hell. The scene in Return of the Jedi, when Luke is in the Emperor's throne room, or Palpatine's throne room, and Luke is believing he believes that his contingent of rebels is on the fuck is the name of that planet, the Ewok planet, Endor, the moon, and they're like the rebels had this plan to to catch this moon base unawares, and Sidious in all his glory and machination, he's just like, "It was I who fed you the information about the moon base. You'll find that it's fully operational." Like that, like, haha, fuck you. I have everything figured out. Like, your fleet's fucked. Blah 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 blah. Snoke in this film is actually an inversion of this trope. Like, or a deconstruction of it, however you want to like phrase it. He believes that he has everything under control, and he may up to a point, but there's like one dangling thread that he just didn't account for that ends up being his downfall. Because in this movie, spoilers, he dies. Snoke dies abruptly, and while he's giving this, like, loving the smell of his own farts, like, speech, like, essentially what occurs is that Rey, having gone to confront Kylo against the order, against the advice of Luke, goes to basically try and turn Kylo Ren to the light side, because she had a vision of turning him to the light side, which is another thing we have to get to too. Is the relationship between Kylo and Rey in this movie is very. I mean, it's a whole another topic, but we're focused on this right now. And essentially, what transpires after that is Kylo takes her to Snoke, and it appears as though he's like playing the role of Vader in, the beginning of that scene in Return of the Jedi. He takes Rey to Snoke, and Snoke has her at his mercy. And he's going on and on and on. He's like, I knew everything from the beginning. I've planned this whole thing out. You thought you could turn Kylo Ren because I gave you the vision of that happening. It was all my doing. That's not going to happen. That's all impossible. I tricked you. And then he basically goes into this whole thing about how Kylo is essentially too weak to have even been capable of this, and too weak to be capable of breaking away from Snoke. And this actually causes he's like, I can see into this boy's mind. He's an open book to me. He can't hide his emotions from me. And literally, as he's saying this, Kylo is like force manipulating Rey's lightsaber, which has been taken by Snoke and is next to him on the seat. He just kind of like moves it with his mind, so the lightsaber's pointing at Snoke, turns it on with his mind, and kills Snoke. So it's another deconstruction or inversion or subversion of this Star Wars like insidious Sith trope. This trope of the master of the Sith being this Svengali manipulator, this man behind the curtain, this creature lurking in the shadows. No, he's just an arrogant prick, and he didn't account for something, and then he died. It's a brilliant subversion of that, like that. A rule within not only the stories of the within the movieverse, but I mean it's a Star Wars trope. Moving on, another subversion, which is what really makes this movie like different and really kind of brave, kind of like a step out of what you would expect from a Star Wars movie, is the relationship between Rey and Luke, and then the relationship between Rey and Kylo, which develops throughout the story, because the relationship between Rey and Luke is not reflective of, say, the relationship between Yoda and Luke in Empire Strikes Back. It's actually extremely different. Luke in this movie, for a good portion of this movie, is how do I put this? He is a hindrance. He's not good at teaching. He's not good at passing on his knowledge. He doesn't necessarily fail to teach Rey anything, but by the end of the movie, when Rey decides to go to turn Kylo, because she saw the fact that he would turn, she's not right. Let's just make that clear. She's not correct in that Kylo's going to turn. But that being said, her going isn't the apocalyptic situation that Luke makes it out to be, because Luke thinks that, who knows what he thinks? He thinks that she's going to die, or Kylo's going to feed her to Snoke, or whatever the fuck. But that's not what happens. And it's a direct antithesis of what happened between Yoda and Luke, where Luke pretty much at the end of Empire Strikes Back says, "I'm gonna go fight Vader," and Yoda's like, "You're not gonna be able to do this. You can't. You're gonna die." And Yoda's right. The only reason Luke doesn't die at the end of that is pure luck, to be completely honest. But it's, I mean, these are all kind of, there are other things too in the movie that like, that are deconstructions of, especially with, Poe Dameron, who's the master pilot. His arc in the movie is extremely interesting. His portion of the story is like a deconstruction of, oh, and I have to get to Kylo and Rey. I'll do that after I talk about this. Poe Dameron's story is a deconstruction of the hero, of the heroics of Star Wars, like the propensity of these Star Wars protagonists to just launch themselves into highly dangerous situations. Like, they all have hero complexes. They all have to be, to a certain extent, that makes them kind of like glory hounds. They all need to be the people who are the sole arbiter of this mission's success, or they're willing to go on these, crazy, stupid, dangerous missions, and of course they always somehow come out like okay, but it's never shown like the flip side of that. Like, what if you just fucking fail? Or what if it's a Pyrrhic victory? Like, okay, you won, or you accomplished your objective, but you killed a whole bunch of people in the process of doing this, and the benefit that's supposed to be, apparent to us is a little less apparent because we lost so much trying to get this done. And finally, you have the relationship between Kylo and Rey, which is interesting because Kylo's analog is Darth Vader from the first series. Obviously. I mean, it's not a perfect comparison, and that's actually kind of the point, is that Kylo is chasing this, like, quote-unquote Sith ideal of Darth Vader that he probably can't accomplish, can't fulfill, and shouldn't even try to. In the second movie, in Empire Strikes Back, Luke has nothing but contempt for Darth Vader. Luke is the crusader. He's firmly on the side of good, and he believes that he is. And Darth Vader's the evil guy. He's the bad guy, and there's nothing to it. He is just bad, and he needs to be stopped at all costs, essentially. Whereas Rey's attitude towards Kylo, even towards like the middle, because they have this like psychic link with each other that neither of them really can explain, and I was starting to worry that they were related, and that's what the whole thing was about, but they're not, or at least that hasn't been revealed in this movie. So at a certain point, Rey starts to realize that she wants to try and save Kylo and not destroy Kylo, which is to me, an opposite view from what Luke felt, at least in Empire. In Jedi, it's a different story, but we're at kind of analogous points in these two characters' development through their respective stories, and they're completely different characters, which is what makes it work. I mean, if it's the same thing, who cares, right? But yeah, this back and forth between the two, and her and Rey's and Kylo's, I don't know if you would call it affection, but respect. I would say it almost borders on affection for each other, is interesting. It's different. It's not like it's a variation on a theme between two people who are ostensibly enemies, but they have this mutual respect for one another. Now I'm going to get on to a couple things that were a bit problematic. There weren't that much. There wasn't that much to pick from, so that's good. Essentially, the rebel ships are trying to escape from this First Order dreadnought, and then this dreadnought releases fighters to, I believe it's fighters. Somehow, Leia's on the bridge of this ship. Leia and all the crew bridge are on the ship. The bridge is hit directly, and Leia is sucked out into space. And you think to yourself, and first of all, Kylo, who's Leia's son, he's basically going in. He's going towards the bridge. He knows that Leia's in there, and he's about to fire on the bridge himself in his fighter, in his, I guess, his modified TIE fighter, and he doesn't do it. And it's a really emotionally driven scene. And then these two TIE fighters kind of come up behind Kylo and fire on the bridge. And he knows Leia's in there. And he flies away, and it's real fucking, it's packed. It's loaded. Leia gets sucked out of the ship. And is floating in space. And we see her floating in space. And she's not despite having been in a room that had experienced catastrophic damage, she's floating in space. She wakes up in space and then flies like a witch, flies, or like a sorcerer, flies through space. And then opens the ship door with her mind, I guess. It goes in and the door shuts. Here's my problem with what I just described. I know that Leia can use the Force. I know that Leia can manipulate the Force. I'm not denying that. But when a human body hits the vacuum of space, you're dead within seconds. I'm almost sure that you're dead within seconds. The fact that she was floating out there for what seemed to be at least I don't know, a minute or two, and she was able to resuscitate herself or I guess bring herself back. It just It was, I didn't buy it, basically. I couldn't really take it. It was very weird. And, this isn't to say, I wanted Leia to die or anything like that. But I think it would have been more powerful had she died. And I think it would have been more powerful had Kylo known that she'd died and gone on to meet with Rey with that in the back of his mind. That's obviously not what happened. It's not a big deal. It's just a little stupid to me. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense how she survived, in my opinion. And, I don't know. Other than that, it was kind of like a big-lipped alligator moment, or a what the fuck moment, or something like that. I was just what, how, why, no, what? Once this happens, Leia's out of the movie for a certain period of time recovering, and this purple-haired lady named Holdo, I believe, Vice Admiral Holdo, just takes over. And the problem is that she's introduced too quick. It's Leia. This happens to Leia, and then Holdo just walks in from off screen, okay, here I am to take my position as Vice Admiral, and it was just really jarring. It's not that big of a deal. And it didn't ruin the movie, that's for sure. It felt a little forced, maybe, but I mean, what transpires after that is good. I mean, the rest of the movie's fine. There's another scene where they go to Finn and another character go to like a casino on a planet to retrieve someone, bring them back to the ship that's running away from the First Order dreadnought. And the framing of this is like, because the movie establishes at some point that like the Rebel Alliance ship is like in trouble. Like it doesn't have a lot of fuel. Like they only have a limited amount of time, and this side venture seems just like they wouldn't have enough time to do it. But that's just like a slight pacing problem. I also really liked the environment and the kind of tonal shift from the tension of the situation on the ship, on the rebel ship, and the kind of like fun nature of the casino. Even though the casino itself is a subplot that has a couple layers to it that are pretty good, and I think fit in well with a lot of the themes of the movie, which I think kind of fly under the radar at points. Finn is like introduced to this world, this casino, by this other character who's like who said she hated it. It was like a place that she despises, and Finn was like, "Oh, it seems like it's a lot of fun here," and she says, "Well, there's only one way that people like this could get this wealthy, and that's by selling weapons." So they're basically at a casino that's exclusively populated by like rogues, charlatans, and war profiteers. And there's a point in that story arc, or that story subplot, where they discover the manifesto of one of the ships because they stole it to get off the planet. And they're going through it, and they see like, oh yeah, these guys look like they sell to the Empire, or I'm sorry, the First Order, because they have like they're selling TIE fighters and First Order equipment. And then they come across an X-wing, and they're like, oh, I guess they also sell to the good guys too. Like, it's just like, for a Star Wars movie, it's a very nuanced look at like conflict and war. And that's like something that you don't really expect. And also the whole there was also they touched upon like class themes on that planet. There's a lot of things that they touched on that where I was just like, I mean they're going above and beyond for this, but I really appreciated it. But yeah, I'm not gonna go into the end because I feel like the end should be seen for itself. It's very good. The end is very good. The end of the movie is actually, it just is. It's just one of the better endings in a Star Wars movie that makes you want to like see the next one. Overall, the movie was great. There are other movies in the series that I like better for different reasons, but overall, this is like top 3 among my my best Star Wars choices. So I recommend you see it, and you do you.